The 400-meter dash is a race that separates fast men from true track and field athletes, which is probably why many high school athletes tried to avoid running it. So it is undeniable that if you can win that event, you really are one of the kings of the track. And at the 2023 World Championships, one of the greatest 400-meter runners to ever compete in the event was nowhere to be found. Michael Norman wasn't there. And after winning it all in 2022, most people expected him to repeat again as the world's best. And even if it doesn't feel like it, he has only got one medal at any major international championships to this point. No disrespect to anyone else who's competing, but if you don't beat him, the fastest man we've seen for the better part of a decade, you are not really the best yet. The truth is that Michael Norman is a once-in-a-generation talent who has everything that it takes to not only win the Olympics, but to break the world record in the 400-meter dash when he does it. His absence in 2023 is proof that it's exactly what he's betting on. Cause honestly, it's the only thing left for him to accomplish, to go down as the greatest 400-meter runner of all time. And this is why. When it comes to Michael Norman, he is so good at what he does that it is actually disrespectful to pretend that anyone has a legitimate shot at beating him if he just does what he's supposed to. Since Wayde Van Niekerk shocked the track world and broke the 400 record in the 2016 Olympics, nobody else since him has ever been a legitimate challenger to break that record. Wayde may still be on the track now, but he last won a medal of any color in 2017, so it is safe to say that his best days are far behind him now. Remember, track and field fans are blinded by fast times, so since his Olympic performance, we've not been given a reason to pay attention to anyone until Michael Norman came along. He's not only the fastest 400-meter runner in the game now, but he's the only one talented enough to follow Wayde's blueprint to break the record. At the high school level, Michael Norman was a phenom, the likes of which we hardly ever get to see. I could read off all of his high school accolades, but that wouldn't really do him justice to prove how good he actually was. So let's just put it this way. Michael Norman was literally on the same exact level as Noah Lyles when he was in high school. They both dominated so much and were so far ahead of the rest of their competition that they really didn't see any until they faced off against each other in the Olympic trials final for the 200-meter dash. Keep in mind, they were still in high school at the time, and they finished 4th and 5th at the trials. So they barely missed out on Team USA. And the only real difference between Noah Lyles and Michael Norman from that point is that Noah Lyles went pro and didn't look back ever since, and Michael Norman went to USC for 2 years in college. But if you were paying attention, I just referred to Michael Norman as a 200-meter runner, but we all know him for the 400. So I'll come back to that later. But as far as his college career was concerned, Michael Norman proved that he was who we thought he was. He was an NCAA championship finalist in the 400-meter dash outdoors as a freshman, but that was after winning the Pac-12 championship. But as a sophomore, he ran the table, winning the NCAA indoors and the NCAA outdoors in the 400. But that still doesn't make it clear how good he actually was. So here is the whole story. He technically only ran one indoor college season, and he was undefeated in every Pac-12 race that he ever ran at the conference meet. It didn't really matter if it was a 200, a 400, or even a 4x4. If Michael Norman was on the track, he was going to win. His fastest wind legal 200 was 20.06, but that was into a strong minus headwind. And he didn't even run that event much, because he was focusing on the 400, where he would break the collegiate record when he won the national championship. After all of those accomplishments, he turned professional, signing with Nike. And of course, expectations were high for him. But this is where the story gets interesting, or confusing, depending on how you look at it. Because up until that point, it was very clear that the goal for Michael Norman was to break the world record in the 400. And he validated that by running 1970 in the 200 the year that he turned pro. And the following year, he ran 986 in the 100. The reason why this matters is because Wayde Van Niekerk is the current world record holder. He took that record from Michael Johnson. Both of those men broke 20 seconds in the 200. Long story short, once we know you can break 44 in the 400, you gotta break 20 seconds in the 200 to have a shot at breaking the world record. And Michael Norman checks both boxes. But as fast as he was, he didn't make the finals in the 400 at the 2019 World Championships. To say that year was a disappointment is clearly an understatement. But I'm sure you still don't get it yet, because Michael Norman is one of 3 men in history to break 10 seconds in the 100, 20 seconds in the 200, and 44 seconds in the 400. Of course, Wayde Van Niekerk is one of them, but Fred Curley is the other. And last time I checked, he's convinced that he's a short sprinter now. That means that in 2019, Michael Norman had already proven himself to be a world record threat, but yet he didn't even make a final at the Worlds. And from that year on down, track and field fans have been waiting for Michael Norman not just to win, but to win big in any major race that he enters. We already know that he's fast, so every other race is just a formality. No matter what he does on the Diamond League, it's just Michael doing Michael things. He's actually so good that it gets boring, because the only story to tell is if he loses. And unfortunately, that happened again in the 2021 Olympics. He did make the 400 meter final, but he didn't get a medal when he got there. And everybody watching knew that was not supposed to happen. So when he finally won the world in 2022, it had been a long time coming. He didn't even run a new PR to do it, because he didn't have to. That race was just Michael Norman proving perhaps to himself that he was as good as we already knew that he could be. So we all assumed he'd run it back again to win the world in the 400. But Michael and his coaches saw things a little bit differently. Michael didn't run much in 2023, and when he did, he didn't focus on the 400. Remember, the only real goals that he can accomplish at this point are to win gold in the Olympics and break the world record, preferably when he gets there. So everything he did in 2023 was preparation to do it. He did compete as a short sprinter and show flashes of the speed that we know he has, but he was inconsistent in the races he ran. But remember, the point wasn't for Michael Norman to win the world in the 100. He is preparing his body to run faster than anyone else has ever run for longer than most of us would ever dream of sprinting. And with the Olympics now less than 1 year away, the clock is ticking for him to get it done. Michael Norman is the greatest talent that we've ever seen attempt to run the 400 meter dash. He was a high school phenom who conquered the college ranks and then turned pro, where his speed set a standard that nobody else can touch. And it's only because the only man left who could has his best days behind him. But as of right now, Michael Norman is not the world record holder in the 400 meter dash. At least, not yet. You could argue that he disappeared in 2023, but that's only because he's back in the lab, working on something special. And as far as any legit track fan should be concerned, we should expect him to pull it off, because we know that he's got the talent to do it, and he's the only man left in the world who could. And one thing is for certain, track and field fans want to see fast times. So if he doesn't, we're not going to have a lot to look forward to in the 400 meter dash for quite some time. I'm Coach Rob, and thank you so much for watching this video. And if you want to see more content like this, then please like and subscribe.